As someone who has really experienced the disparities in scientific research for female bodies, when you're talking to your mentors at Atalanta, what are you impressing upon them? What do you want to make sure that the young girls that they're working with walk away from those relationships with?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that's really difficult when we think about sports is that we kind of put it into this like incredibly competitive lens. And it's one of the reasons that so many young girls end up dropping out of sports. And it's because they grow up, being in these really pressure cooker environments where it's like all about competition, it's all about winning. And I'm a professional athlete. I'm incredibly competitive, but I always performed at my best when I had fun with it, when it was healthy, when I was excited to run fast and get the milkshake afterwards. And so a lot of the work that I have been trying to do is try to bridge this gap between really empowering young girls to be their best selves, be competitive, like want to win and all of this sort of stuff, but not make that their only identity. So a lot of the work that we do is creating safe spaces for younger girls in primarily underserved parts of New York City, and working with them to say, hey, like, what are the pressures that you're feeling? What are the experiences that you're going through that are maybe taking away some of the joy in sport? And then working with them to really try to empower them to kind of regain the narrative of what sports means to them and creating more of a healthy, well-rounded experience so that maybe they're not dropping out of sport at the rates that they are.
Kate, how does it feel to be championing and running these programs and research that I feel like you could have benefited from earlier in your career as well?
I was on the U.S. rowing team in the late 1990s, and at the U.S. Olympic Training Center in San Diego, we didn't have a sports dietitian and sports psychologist checking on us every day. We were figuring it out. It gave me a lot of questions to go back to medical school with, so I went back to Johns Hopkins and had all these questions about sports medicine, and I realized most of sports medicine in the U.S. was really under the auspices of orthopedics. In 2000, I asked the U.S. Olympic Committee, I emailed them and said, hey, I would really like to do a survey of the female athletes that have been national team athletes. Do you have a big database? And they said, of course we do. And I said, I want to survey them and find out about fertility issues and how they transitioned out of sport and a lot of different questions. And they said, well, you're absolutely not going to do that. And I said, why? And they said, because you're going to find out things we don't want to know and we don't want to do anything about. So obviously, athlete motivation, that just got me really focused to figure it out eventually myself. So fast forward 20 years, and the new and improved U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee, which is what it's named now, they have a physician who's very open-minded, and he invited me to be the co-chair of a women's health task force, where we are just opening up the books, asking the questions, we're talking to the athletes, finding out what's important to them. And so it's really been a mission, it's been a joy to be involved in that.
I'm wondering how your work with the Human Performance Alliance and the foundation, and then also running the New York Liberty, how all of these jobs kind of inform each other, because you've made health and wellness a really important part of the management of that team.
We didn't go into the specifics of, Mary's story, unless everybody read the New York Times article, but when I read like what you've gone through, I think that the lack of listening and the lack of compassion and the lack of evidence-based research that informed the protocols that you were, under were really sad to me, right? And as a team owner of the New York Liberty, that is pretty much the opposite way that we approach everything about our basketball operations. For us, we very openly, we prioritize player health and well-being. For us, we have the Brooklyn Nets and the New York Liberty, and we invest as much into the New York Liberty as we do to the Brooklyn Nets, in the same way like you have a son and a daughter. In addition to moving them to Barclays, we built a state-of-the-art locker room, and we invested in the performance team. We hired a nutritionist. Prioritizing player health and well-being really isn't just the right thing to do, but it really is good for business also. They'll play, a well-rested, recovered athlete is going to play better. It'll increase our wins, and that'll bring more fans, and that's really ultimately what we're trying to do, is elevate and grow the league and, make professional women's sports commercially successful.